Behind me, there are loads of motorbikes, but today I've gone for the little SMC R. We're tackling the question, tall rider, small bike, is it any fun? Stick around. All right, before we get going, we're going to play around a bit with the settings. Because on a good day, I tip the scales at a 3-digit weight. Luckily, the SMC R comes with an adjustable suspension. And what I've always liked about KTM is that they actually show you what they recommend here. A comfort setting, a base setting, a sporty one, and even one for maximum load. So now I'll have a bit of a play with the rear shock and the fork, adjusting compression and rebound. Of course, I'll go for the sport setting. Then we're off. We've got the WP Apex fork here, a separate function piston fork. On the right side, we adjust the compression, and for the sport setting, I'll dial it 7 clicks down. On the left leg, it's rebound, and I'll also go 7 clicks down there before moving on to the shock. So back here on the shock, after already sorting the fork, you've got the option to adjust the rebound easily with the bike's ignition key. What's not so simple is adjusting the preload. For that, I'd need to remove this side panel. There's an Allen key for that. But the hook spanner you'd actually need to change the preload isn't included as standard. So I just have to trust whatever the lads in Mattighofen have preset. Usually they set it up for around 90 kilos, so I'm not too far off anyway. And now it's really time to get going. All right, folks, as you can see, I've changed into something more suitable before we really get going with the KTM 390 SMC R. One difference compared to the stock delivery is that we've fitted it with the Conti Attack SM2. A proper supermoto tire. We've already done a comparison test with this bike against its rival, the Suzuki DRZ4 SM, and also a solo test. All right, time to hop in the saddle. I'll climb on, and as you can see, I actually fill out the bike pretty well. I don't think it looks completely ridiculous, but hey, let me know in the comments if you disagree. Just look at this beauty, and that's what I find so cool. Ready to race. You've got everything you need right there on the display. Over here on the right, I can dive in and I'll quickly show you how to change the riding mode. Street mode. I could also customize that with traction control, ABS settings, and the quick shifter. Everything's active right now. If I switch over to sport, the traction control gets a sportier response. We've got Supermoto ABS, meaning the rear is deactivated, and the quick shifter's on as well. So let's fire her up. The sound isn't over the top, it doesn't get on your nerves. The menu navigation is totally clear. You can even make it simpler. There's a minimalist display mode where you only see speed and gear, but in my view, that's not really necessary. And I'm starting my route here in the city because I reckon that's where many people will be doing their first laps with the KTM, and basically the usual environment where it'll be ridden. What stands out straight away is that you can actually ride it in quite a relaxed way. 4th gear, 5th gear at 40, all of that works. How it feels once you pick up the pace, we'll find out a bit later. Otherwise, for the city, I always find Supermotos brilliant, really lively and nimble. You can sneak past cars when traffic allows because the dimensions are so compact. The seat height also works very well for me. I have to say though, with my height of 1.87 m, the knee angle is definitely on the tighter side. And of course, what's interesting for you is not just the height, but also the fact that I'm in the 3-digit weight range. So, how does the KTM cope with a bigger rider in the saddle? Well, let's head up into the twisties and find out. Here come the first hairpins. We'll take it steady for now, because even though the Conti warms up quickly, it still needs a bit. I'll close my visor so it's clearer for you. And we've already reached the end of the town limits. Right. What's immediately obvious is it picks up nicely on the throttle. There's a bit of dirt on the road here. We'll probably need to be a bit careful today because it's already starting to feel autumnal, even here in Eastern Austria, and that's despite it still being August. The handling is really sharp and agile, doing a great job. When the 390 first came out, a lot of people criticized it, saying it wasn't a proper supermoto because of that tank bulge in front of you. But I have to say, I've moved quite far forward now, and this feels absolutely supermoto-like. Looking out here, I don't feel I'm missing anything at all. I should point out though, I'm not exactly a supermoto pro. And with 230 millimeters of suspension, travel front and rear, in my view, that's more than enough. so KTM really doesn't need to put up with that accusation of it not being a genuine supermoto. As you can see, the amount of full throttle needed is quite high if you really want to let it rip, and you do have to rev it. The pull is noticeably weaker. I'll try to show you. If I slot into 6th at 4,000 revs, not a lot happens at first. So no, this isn't a torque monster. The quick shift is brilliant though, even with the throttle open. And I think that's especially important here because quite often you're on the gas and actually want to drop down a gear, and it handles that really well. Braking performance up front, we've got a 320mm single disc, and it does a good job. We weighed the bike ourselves on the 1000 PS cattle scale and got 163 kilos. That's really within range. Normally you could ride a bit quicker here, but today it's tricky with all the muck lying on the road surface. The weight figure doesn't lie though. 163 kilos is super light, really pleasant, and 45 horsepower is plenty. You can see we're already heading pretty steeply uphill here, and it still pulls along. For an A2 bike, you really can't ask for more. The handlebar position also feels very comfortable in terms of width, good ergonomics overall. And now you can, yes, drift the corner. I have to admit straight away though, I can't really do it at all. So apologies to all the proper supermoto cracks out there. For me, it's more about playing around and having a laugh. When I can lighten up the rear a bit and let it slide, it's just like the good old days on the mountain bike. And now, I had to drop into 2nd because in 3rd, with my weight, it just doesn't pull quite enough. And I think for a lot of people, this 390 SMC R could make for a really fun 2nd bike. But of course, you have to ask yourself, what do I want from it? It does force you to pick your lines well, carry your momentum at times too, especially in these wider bends. It's not like you just whack the throttle open and suddenly see 100 on the speedo. Now we've got a straight. I'm not going that fast right now, but I have had it up to 167 on the clock on the motorway, so that's possible too. Of course, that's not where the KTM really feels at home, because this super upright riding position leaves the rider quite exposed to the elements. Otherwise, as I said, the handling is spot on, super agile, brilliant for the twisties, especially the tighter bends. And for me, I just love messing about with a supermoto like this. All right, let's see. Nobody behind us, so we can give it a try. Yeah, the rear does get pretty light. In sport mode, it actually allows the rear to lift, and the braking performance is really solid, especially when you think about the price. Under 7,000 euros in Austria and 6,299 in Germany, you're getting a lot of bike here and plenty of fun to go with it. So, just up ahead, there's the big wall in front of us, one of the easternmost 1,000 meter mountains, the so-called Hohe Wand. It's so famous because the face rises almost 400 meters straight up from the surrounding landscape. It's basically the start of the Alps and our go-to test route. I'll turn around just up there because the next village is coming up, and then I'll check back in from the saddle. Alright folks, I'm back. And just one more thing, new for this year, we're offering a second perspective in the motovlog. That's why whenever you're seeing the helmet cam view, you also have to put up with this stick here, the Insta stick. The cool thing with the X5 is that the software has been able for quite a while now to edit that out. So in the 360-degree footage, you don't see the stick. Here though, you do. But I still wanted to show you what it looks like from the front, how I look on the SMC R as a fully grown man. And I think the Instas capture that pretty well. As I said, we switched over to them this year and we're quite happy with the setup. Now I want to say a few words about the Conti SM2. Continental has this traction skin technology, which basically means you don't need to scrub the tire in. It comes pre-roughened from the factory, so it's ready to go right away, which really suits me. You can imagine, since we're constantly hopping onto new test bikes, having to start cautiously every time until the tires are bedded in is a bit of a pain, especially with those chicken strips you have to wear away carefully. And that's exactly what the Conti offers here. Confidence right from the start. And now we're heading back into the twisty section, so let's see what the Conti's got to offer. The handling really is excellent, very accommodating. You can ride these supermotos in a classic naked bike style as well, which is more my way of doing it, maybe even with a bit of hang-off. But here, in the tighter corners coming up, it's more about pushing the bike down. Normally, I'm not that keen on it, especially downhill. It always feels a bit fiddly, but with a supermoto, it's just brilliant. You can really push it through the lean, add pressure on the bars, brace yourself against the bike's lean, and that's where a supermoto delivers the most fun in the saddle. More than a naked, more than any other bike concept in my opinion. And that's why I can really see the SMC R as a perfect second bike. That liveliness and effortlessness without intimidating power is just great fun. Next to a horsepower monster in the garage, it would definitely hold its own. Especially here, where the road tightens up a bit, I just give it a little push and I'm straight back online. That's a real joy. So big praise from me, and with that, I'd like to move on to my conclusion for KTM. Yes, you have to rev it if you want to get the full potential out of it, but that's always the case. With my height, I have to rev out every A2 bike to make the most of it. So you can see it doesn't deliver loads from the bottom, probably even less than some other singles. But just look, I'm not riding like a maniac. 3 seconds full throttle and I'm only just at 100, that's fine. It's a bike you can really ring out, have a lot of fun with, and also brake hard. If you're curious about how it does on a proper supermoto track, I recommend checking out No Pain's test. He really put it through its paces and basically lives on the supermoto circuit, whereas I only drop by occasionally. And a quick word on the quick shifter, because at this level, as far as I know, no other brand offers anything close. KTM are miles ahead here, and fitting a quick shifter to a single cylinder isn't exactly an easy job. Yet they're giving young riders access to this, and with it they get the full package of safety equipment. Same goes for the brakes. KTM haven't cut corners in the safety department, and that's fantastic. Where you do have to make some concessions is with the high vibrations of the single. You don't notice it much here hammering through the twisties, but on the motorway, holding higher speeds constantly, it definitely becomes more apparent. I really like the controls, everything falls to hand nicely. The build quality is also at a high level. Yes, it's made in India, but nothing rattles. There are no issues with panel gaps, and the materials used feel premium. For the price, I honestly think this is the most exciting KTM on the market right now. Let me know in the comments what you make of the SMC. Do you see the 3-digit weight figure as a deal breaker? Or do you actually like the idea of being a heavier rider on something this small, where you really have to wring its neck to keep it going? Does that appeal to you or not? Let me know. That's it from me. Thanks for tuning in and see you soon.